So should we talk about Pokemon?
I found a couple
commerce?
as I was coming in, yeah.
I spent 45 seconds on that game and I'm done. I think I'm over it. So Michael, thank you for being with us here today. Really great to have you. So as someone who works for a payments company, one of the really interesting things that we're seeing in terms of a shift in behavior is that this traditional intent-based model of searching for something on the web, finding a link, and then clicking it and interacting with the merchant directly is changing to a model or a construct where merchants and consumers need to connect in a multitude of different formats and a multitude of different contexts. We're definitely seeing that in our space, and I think we're seeing this play out, even though it's in the early innings, we're seeing it play out in the messaging space, in the social space, but it's early. And we thought, well, who better to walk us through where we think social platforms can play in this sort of new contextual commerce world where merchants are trying to connect in channels that they're not familiar with than the guy who runs commerce at Pinterest. So thanks for being here. So Pinterest is about 6 years old, and you guys have really evolved from a place where Pinterest has sort of evolved into the taste graph, right? Or it started where users were putting their preferences for things they like and their inspiration, right? It sort of became a collection of that data, but really evolved into a place where people are actually buying things now, right? So tell us about Buyable pins, and that product's been out for a year now. Tell us about the product and how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, Pinterest has been around for 6 years, and it's really a place where people go to find and discover all sorts of different things, whether that's recipes or ideas for places to travel, things to do with your kids, or products. People come. There's tons of fashion ideas, home decor ideas on the platform, and because of that, a year ago, we actually worked together on building this. We launched Buyable Pins, which is a way to try to take all of that interest and intent that is on the platform around buying things and make it really easy for our users to connect with the merchants who are selling those things. It's interesting. A year ago, everyone was just talking about the buy it button itself. There's sort of a buy button craze. Everybody launched one, and I think that sort of missed the mark. The focus was really on the button, when really it's about the whole shopping experience. It's how do you help someone discover something? How do you help them get comfortable with the merchant, with the product? How do you help them get recommendations from their friends through that journey? And then yes, ultimately, click on a buy it button and check out. So really in the last year, we've been focused on building out the rest of those experiences. We've also been growing the platform, so now there's over 10 million products on the platform, sold by over 20,000 merchants live selling right now today. And it's been great. It's been a lot of fun to watch it scale and to explore this new space.
I mean, it feels like it's always been the holy grail for Pinterest to figure out, all this traffic you're driving to retailers. It feels like it's been the holy grail for Pinterest to figure out how to bring that experience into your UI, where you have a lot of data about consumers, and just create a more seamless experience. What are some of the trends you're seeing in terms of who the merchants are? Is it big retail? Is it sort of the obvious names like Nordstrom and Macy's? Is it small retailers? Is it moms and pops? What are some surprises you've seen in terms of use cases or who's actually buying and what kind of merchants are engaging you guys?
Yeah, so there's a wide range of merchants. We have some of the larger ones you mentioned, Nordstrom, Macy's, Neiman Marcus, Bloomingdale's, so big retailers, Wayfair for home decor and gardening, things like that. But a lot of these are small mom and pop shops as well, little brands starting and using platforms like Shopify or BigCommerce or Magento to start their sort of their first e-commerce presence, and they can integrate with us really easily. And I think what's been interesting is that for a lot of those small companies, this is really the first time that they've done a lot of exploration into omnichannel. For a lot of them, they've got their boutique, and then they set up a website because someone told them once that was a good idea to do, and then they were able to plug into Pinterest, and they've seen some tremendous growth right away. So it's been awesome to see that audience really engage and be immediately pleased with the results. They also sell some really unique and awesome products, which is kind of what people go to Pinterest for.
Yeah.
They're looking for new, inspiring, exciting ideas.
I imagine discovery is always a hard problem for someone in your business to solve, right? When you think of discovery, so a couple of weeks ago, I think you guys announced that there's a upcoming service or product around image recognition where the idea is I can be walking around in the physical world, I can take a picture of something that I'm inspired by, and all of a sudden sort of I'm engaged with Pinterest. You guys are serving up results that are potentially also inspiring to me and can sort of lead to an action or a purchase. Tell me about what your plans are there.
Yeah, so this is one of the great uses of machine learning and AI at Pinterest. So a couple of years ago we bought a company called Visual Graph that has some really neat object recognition and object detection technology. So what we announced is you can now use that technology to look into any image on Pinterest, and we'll spot the objects that are products, and then we'll automatically show you similar products that you can buy on the platform. Yeah. So that's pretty cool, and that's live today. What we're also working on and what we demoed at that event was the ability to do that with your camera. Yeah. You mentioned Pokemon Go, so if anyone's out looking for some Pokemon, they could use this. The idea is you see someone that's stylish, you see a living room that you really like, you can use your camera and point it right at that object. It will detect the object and find similar objects on Pinterest. Like I said, we've got over 10 million products on the platform, so there's probably something that's close to, if not identical to it, that matches.
But I think if my memory serves me right, there's been a number of services or companies that have tried to sort of get that right, where you're bridging kind of offline inspiration with digital conversion and purchase behavior, yeah. And they've struggled with it, right? And so there are some challenges with it, and I think accuracy is a big part of it, right? So how do you think about solving those things?
Yeah, accuracy is tough, and it's one of the challenges with any of the machine learning approaches to something. And I think you obviously need a lot of computing power, and you need a great algorithm, but those are just table stakes. I think the two things that you need to make a really good experience are a lot of data, and then a feedback loop that tells you whether your algorithm is progressing and going in the right direction. Yeah. And so what we have is over 75 billion pins on the platform, collected onto 2 billion boards and 100 million users who are interacting with those. And that's a really powerful data set and group of people who can give us feedback on whether this is working or not. Yeah. So over 100 million times every month, someone uses this visual search technology, and that helps us refine it every single time. So the accuracy just gets better and better.
And then the ability to actually close the loop and do something about it and actually convert to a purchase is a big part of it as well, right? Whereas just being able to find things and then see similar things, but not actually being able to transact, it's kind of a blocker, right?
So, exactly.
So let's talk more about machine learning and AI and things of that nature, because I think that's what people are interested in. So the 75 billion images that you all have in your database, just walk us through the machine learning that you use to create sort of the personalized experience for me as a Pinterest user, which, by the way, I've been using incessantly since we bought a house and since we're trying to figure out how to design the damn thing. It's been an incredible tool, but walk us through some of the nitty-gritty around how Pinterest is using AI and machine learning.
Yeah, so one of the uses that we have for it is developing that visual search technology. The other big use for it is personalization, is trying to make those recommendations. Now that you've been using the service a lot, yeah. We have a lot of information. You've done searches, you've looked at pins, you've pinned some things, you've named your boards. You probably have one that's, I don't know.
I have named my
beautiful
boards,
living room, Encore's dream bedroom,
that's
something
right.
like that. So that sort of information gets fed into those algorithms. Yeah. And again, what we can do is, because we have a huge data set and the app that gives us that feedback loop, we can continue tuning that. So when you go to your home feed, we've updated the results that we show you to include some things that we think that you're going to be interested in. Yeah. And we're constantly refining that model and building up a sense of what you're interested, not just overall, but in the moment.
Yeah. It's a really interesting view in how Pinterest will use machine learning and does use machine learning and AI. Let's take a step aside from Pinterest and just think about the broader commerce ecosystem in general. How do you think AI and machine learning fit into broader commerce? Obviously, we've seen a bunch of really interesting examples here, with bots being one manifestation of that. But when you think of commerce broadly, where's the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially because of mobile. This is, we were just talking backstage and saying it's been the year of mobile for 8 years or 10 years. It's past, it's here. And so what that means is that everybody is looking at a very small screen for short chunks of time. They don't have a lot of continuous time to investigate and browse and look at a lot of options and consider. So the better you are at limiting the set of things that people need to consider to only the ones that are actually interesting to them, the more successful you're going to be. For Pinterest, when you're looking at the screen on your phone, you can probably see 4 items at a time. We've got to make sure those are the right 4 items. And the same is true if you're showing the search results inside a retailer app or you're building a marketplace. So the stakes are just higher.
So it's really a necessity for anyone in the space, right? I mean, we think about the payment space, and when we look at what Uber and all these great companies that we work with have been able to do in terms of just one-click buying, we see that as table stakes for anyone who's trying to sell anything on mobile, whether you're trying to sell a ride or selling products, whether you're a large retailer, right? And it sounds like the same thing is the case for a Best Buy or a Walmart. I mean, they've got to figure out how to merchandise on mobile and how to make it simple, and they're going to ultimately be in some ways competing with this kind of experience.
Yeah. On the web, if the right sweater that you were looking for was result number 7, you probably still saw it. On mobile, if it's still result number 7, you missed it. So you have to leverage machine learning to get all of those results better.
So how will bots intersect with Pinterest? I mean, I can see bots we're seeing it in the messaging ecosystem. Do you see bots having a place in the Pinterest experience? Where, I mean, my Pinterest experience today is I go to my board and there's a bunch of stuff, right? And it's all awesome stuff, but there's not this sort of experience that seems conducive to a bot construct, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. All of the bots that we talk about recently are text-based. It's a chat bot, or it's through one of these messaging platforms. So it's leveraging natural language processing to try to understand what you're saying and respond really quickly. I think those will be really successful in things like customer service, where you have specified information that you need to get from people, and where you're used to talking to somebody maybe on the phone. Pinterest is entirely image-based. There are some words on there, but for the most part, you're looking at images. And so the conversation that you're having is really not with a bot, it's with Pinterest. So as you're using Pinterest, you're telling us essentially, I'm interested in things that look like this. I've selected this image to pin, I've saved it to a board, I've gone to the close-up, sort of zoomed in on it, and we adjust the whole experience based on that.
Whereas a bot in a messaging construct may be trying to get at what your inspiration is by asking you a bunch of questions. You guys seem to have sort of a really good idea of what my inspiration is or what I'm into based on the actual things that I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's more like like the conversation that you would have in a store, where you say sort of more like this, less like this. I like this one. Do you have anything that's like this but orange?
So is it the year of bots? We were just talking about that with Matt. I mean, is it a thing? Is it a bunch of crap? What is it like?
So from my experience with using them, I think we made a ton of progress. The natural language systems are actually pretty good now. For targeted use cases, it can work pretty well. I think we're going to see enough promise from this year that it will take off in the future. But I'm not banking on there being a huge breakout success in 2016.
Makes sense. Let's talk about search a little bit. So it feels like search is becoming a really interesting asset for Pinterest. I think I read something like Pinterest manages something like 2 billion search queries a month. If you just quickly compare that with Google, I think Google does like 100 billion a month. But there's a very different funnel there in terms of what people are doing, why they're there. So even though it's 50x larger, just a different set of considerations. Talk me through how search fits into Pinterest.
Yeah, the types of things that people are searching for on Pinterest versus Google is pretty different. You probably use Google people use it to navigate, so they'll type in Facebook as a search, and it's sort of a navigational query to take them to facebook.com. I know people who use Google as their primary spell checker. Type in a word, get a definition, or find out how you misspelled it. People don't do that on Pinterest. People are searching on Pinterest for ideas. They come with a kind of a broad notion of what they need or what problem they're trying to solve, and they'll type in something like fall fashion ideas because it's getting close to fall. They know they're going to have to revamp their wardrobe for the start of school or something like that. And what that means is that most of those queries are commercial in nature. There's something that someone is trying to do and accomplish when they search on Pinterest. And we think that makes it really valuable. And as a commerce platform, it's a really interesting place for us to be investing and highlighting the products that our partners have available.
As you think of the long-term success for Pinterest as a business and as a platform, how does commerce fit into that? Is it a make or break effort? How do you think of that?
Well, as I said, Pinterest is for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So is if people, like I said, they come for recipes, they come for travel ideas. There's a lot of different ways to use Pinterest.
Yeah.
A lot of them do relate to things that you might want to buy eventually.
Yeah.
So I think commerce is a really important part of it, and we really need to build a great user experience with great products, great recommendations around that. But there's a whole lot of other things that people do on the platform.
Walk us through like some of the other things you started to mention around like if you're going to be a serious player in commerce, aside from just understanding tastes and being able to facilitate a transaction, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's reviews, there's trust, there's, why should I save my payment information with Pinterest, right? Which all the social platforms are negotiating that relationship with their users. What are all the things you're thinking about in terms of becoming there's logistics, there's like lots of stuff there, right? Payments, right?
Yeah. The sort of the over focus on the buy button last year,
Yep.
I think it hid a lot of this complexity. In commerce, you have to get somebody to the right product in the right mindset at the right time. You have to convince them that they've found the right thing. And you mentioned reviews. That's something that Amazon's been investing for 20 years now, and it's something consumers expect. They have a hard time buying without them.
Yeah.
They'll go hunt them down. They'll buy from a site that has them instead of one that doesn't.
Yeah.
So for commerce platforms, especially the ones that are sort of new and starting in this social or distributed commerce space, it's super important that we meet consumers' expectations in some of those pretty table stakes areas.
Yeah.
And then we still have to differentiate in all these other ways around personal recommendations, around these great experiences like using your camera to discover great products.
As you think of all the data you wish you had and using AI more effectively, like is there something that you wish, like some golden chunk of data that you wish you had, if you could have it your way, that would really make discovery easier, that would make recommendations easier, that would make sort of post-purchase easier? Like when you think of like the data that you wish you had in the platform, anything you can think of?
I always think when I talk to the team about our recommendations, I always say Pinterest should be better than your best friend at finding what you want.
It's a good way of thinking.
And so if we could get access to the best friends of everyone, we'd be in pretty good shape. But I think practically the data that we need and that we're collecting is a lot of engagement data with all sorts of content.
Yeah.
Some of that's off of Pinterest. People do a lot of browsing of products on all of these different sites.
Right.
They're looking at blogs, or they're on Instagram. There's a lot of data out there about what people's taste and preferences are.
Yeah.
And all of that would help us. But
Yeah.
so far we've got a lot of data on our own we have to sift through.
Last question for you before we open up for some questions. A lot of players in messaging and social are going after this opportunity to try to convert the relationship they have with consumers, the relationship they have with advertisers, into one that is based on commerce, right? And everyone's sort of there's a number of players chasing the opportunity. How do you see Pinterest as being different? Obviously, you have way more intent from your users because they're telling you what they want, but in what other ways do you see Pinterest potentially being different, from a Facebook or a Twitter or a WeChat? Be curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the main difference is, you touched on it with talking about the intent that we have on the platform. Mary Meeker has, in her annual Internet Trends summary, pointed out some data that said that over half of people who use Pinterest use it to shop, compared to 12 or around 10% for actual social platforms, for Twitter, Facebook, and the like. And I think that's really telling. People are coming to Pinterest to find products, and that is a big differentiator. It also comes with a lot of responsibility on us to find a way to weave those shopping experiences into the experience that the other 45% of users are using Pinterest for.
Yep.
We want to make it really seamless for you to find the products that you need, but without being in your face. This isn't. We can't betray the Pinterest experience that people come come to the site every day to use just to sell products.
Yep.
So we have to strike a balance, but I think what makes us really different is people are open to it. They like the brand. They trust us. So so far we've had really good success weaving it in, and we've got a lot more to do.
Awesome. So questions from the audience? We have a couple minutes. I don't know if you have a microphone that we can pass around. Sure. Coming.
I want everybody to hear you.
I just wanted to know if there was a chatbot experience that could be woven into the buy button. Is that on the books? Does that make sense to enhance the buying experience?
So I think there's a bunch of places in Pinterest where a sort of a chatbot experience could be interesting. I'm not going to say we're working on any of them, but there's a set of professionals out there that use Pinterest pretty frequently when they talk to their customers. Designers, fashion consultants, architects, landscape developers, all of these people, typically when they meet their customers, they say, hey, do you have a Pinterest profile where I can go and see what your style is? They'll use it to collaborate. So actually, a lot of those initial communications could be mediated and helped by having a bot-like experience in there. You mentioned trying to tie it into the buy button. There, understanding more about the merchant, their return policy, things like that, that could be interesting as well. If you could talk directly to the merchant or a bot that they've added data to.
Yeah, because in the buy button, I think a good way of this too is trying to get the buyer to move on. Make that very. But if you introduce a conversation, I think you're maybe addressing some of their concerns because they're buying from Pinterest. However, they're buying from Nordstrom, right?
I would say from a payments and conversion standpoint, it's always tricky to introduce new things, right?
Exactly.
In a checkout experience, right? So that's the trade-off.
Exactly. When it comes to people spending money, they very, very cautiously change their behavior.
That's right.
You have to do a lot to
Interesting
make
idea,
it comfortable. Oh.
I have a comment.
What do you think the experience with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, how will that play into the buying experience moving forward?
I can totally hear the question.
I think so. The question is, how does Bitcoin or other alternative currencies play into the buying experience? I think for us, we've really been focusing on making it easy and sort of meeting consumers where they are. Like, what is the problem that we're solving for consumers? So, we integrated with Apple Pay, with the help of Braintree to make that happen, because we saw users using it and we saw that it made the buying experience easier. So as soon as we see that for some alternate payment method or currency, I think that could be really interesting. But for us, a lot of the innovation is actually around the payment piece. It's how do you build a great experience that gets people wanting to buy? Not so much, we're not trying to lead in payments.
Any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.